We're looking into Black Laws, the 7th edition, the legal dictionaries. We're looking at the word Constitution. Now notice how it describes the word or defines the word for us. Constitution, the fundamental and organic law of a nation or state, establishing the conception, character, and organization of its government, as well as prescribing the extent of its sovereign power and the manner of its exercise. Black Laws, 7th edition, organic law. The fundamental law or constitution of a state or nation, written or unwritten. That law or system of laws or principles which defines and establishes the organization of its government. So the foundational law, the organic law, the constitutional law, it defines and it establishes the organization of our governments. And again, Black Laws, 9th edition, organic law. The body of laws, as in the Constitution, that define and establish a government. So we're learning here that the Constitution is actually defining and establishing the powers of the government body. So when we look into the Constitution and we read the Constitution, what we are finding is that these laws that are being brought forth are meant to define and establish the power of the state party or the government body. The Constitution Act of Canada, 1867, Article 91. It shall be lawful for the Queen, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate and House of Commons, to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Canada. So here we're seeing that in Article 91, it is stating in the Constitution that it's lawful for the Queen, with the advice and consent of the Senate and House of Commons, to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Canada. Now, when we look to the Supreme Court of Canada, it tells us what this word means here, Canada. Many people who read this will automatically assume that the word Canada refers to a geographical location, to the landmass where we're living. But that's not the case. The Supreme Court of Canada has interpreted the word Canada as follows. Further, although Section 91 gave the Queen the power, with the advice and consent of the Senate and House of Commons, to alter the Constitution of Canada, except in certain expressly designated areas, it does not confer power to amend the BNA Act. The word Canada in Section 91.1 does not refer to Canada as a geographical unit, but refers to the juristic federal unit. So here we're seeing that the Supreme Court has declared for us that when we look into the Constitution Act of Canada, 1867, Article 91, and we find that it's lawful for the Queen to make laws for the peace, order, and good government, the word Canada here is not referring to the landmass. She does not have the right to make laws concerning the landmass of Canada, but she has the right to make laws concerning the federal juristic unit, which is that body corporate. When you look into the definition of juristic person, you see it says, see artificial person under person. And juristic person, see artificial person, an entity such as a corporation, created by law and given certain legal rights and duties of a human being, a being, real or imaginary, who for the purpose of legal reasoning is treated more or less as a human being. Once again, the Queen has the right to produce laws in Canada for the peace, order, and good government. However, the Canada being brought forth here in the ground law, in the organic law, in the foundational law, it's not a geographical territory. It's a body corporate, an artificial person. Now, when you look to the Constitution Act of 1867, Article 9, you find the following operation of law. The executive government and authority of and over Canada is hereby declared to continue to be vested in the Queen. So we learned that the word Canada refers to a corporate body, a corporation. And now we're seeing that this corporation is being ruled by executive powers, or the executive government. Again, in Constitution Act 1867, executive officer or administrator for the time being, carrying on the government of Canada on behalf and in the name of the Queen by whatever title he is designated. So here we're seeing that there are executive officers appointed by the Queen to carry on the government of Canada. And when we read that statement, Government of Canada, we know that it's talking about that corporate body. So we have executive officers who are operating the corporate body, which is titled or called Canada. Now, Black Laws, 7th edition, says Chief Executive Officer. It's a corporation's highest ranking administrator who manages the firm day by day and reports to the board of directors. So here we're seeing that the Governor General has been given the title Executive Officer or Chief Executive Officer of the corporate body of Canada. And it just lines up with the definition in Black Laws edition. Now, once again, the provisions of this Act, this is the Constitution Act of Canada, 1867, Article 10, referring to the Governor General, extend and apply to the Governor General for the time being of Canada or other the Chief, and I should say Executive Officer. We just saw that the Supreme Court declared that Canada is a corporate body. And when we look to the type of power in operation, we find that it is a corporate in nature. It is corporate powers. So again, we're seeing this from the beginning. The Queen has the right to create laws within Canada. We are deceived, and we think the word Canada here refers to a geographical landmass, but it doesn't. The Supreme Court has says that the word Canada here, where the Queen can make laws, it refers strictly to a federal juristic unit. And that federal juristic unit is a corporate body. That's why when we look into the powers that operate in the Constitution, we find that they're executive in nature. Because they have to be, because Canada is a corporate body. And the Governor General is operating as executive officer of the corporate body designated Canada. So we have Canada that's operating as a corporate body. And we have the ministers, the Governor General, the Lieutenant Governors, and those who are associated with the government operating executive powers of this corporate body. Great. So what has that got to do with you and me? Canada is a corporate body. I'm not part of the corporate body. So what's that got to do with us? Well, when we look to their statutory powers, when we look to their enactments and regulations, they are creating laws that are forcing us to be incorporated into these corporate bodies and to play the role of officer of these corporate bodies. And that's the operation of law that they're using to gain jurisdiction over us, to try and apply their laws upon us. When we look to the Ontario Municipal Act, we find that a municipality means a geographic area whose inhabitants are incorporated. So we're seeing it right there. The inhabitants in Ontario are incorporated. Body corporate, Article 4.1. The inhabitants of every, so no room to move there, every municipality are incorporated as a body corporate. So wherever you're living, wherever municipality that you are living, whether it's a town, township, county, whatever it may be, you have been incorporated as a body corporate. You have been given or conferred an incorporation into the body corporate. The City of Toronto Act. The City of Toronto is hereby continued as a body corporate that is composed of its inhabitants of its geographical area. So the City of Toronto, it's considered a body corporate. It's a corporation of law, in law. And it's composed of, or it's made up of, its inhabitants. And it goes on to say, municipality means a geographical area whose inhabitants are incorporated. City of Vancouver, corporation and boundaries. The inhabitants of the area, the boundaries of which are described in this section, shall continue to be a corporation, and a municipality with the name of City of Vancouver. Now, when you go to the justice system, again, their website, you find the following. The terms body corporate and corporation mean exactly the same thing. However, body corporate is an older description of a corporation. It is never used in business and financial writing, which deal with corporations at great length, and does not appear in either the Canadian Oxford Dictionary or the Gage Canadian Dictionary, although other dictionaries do list it. Indeed, the very unfamiliarity of the term body corporate may mean that not all readers realize that it means the same thing as corporation. So here we have the justice system, the judiciary, teaching us and stating to us that when you see the term body corporate, it actually means the same thing as a corporation. So when we go back up now and we look into these enactments and we see that we have been incorporated into the body corporate, we're understanding that we've been incorporated into the corporate body, into the corporation. Body corporate simply means a corporation. Although we never started out as being incorporated into the corporate body of Canada up here when they were making their laws, it was the Queen who had the right to produce laws for the peace, order, and good government of Canada, that corporate body. Now we're coming down to the provincial enactments, and what are they doing? They're trying to incorporate us, they're trying to force us to play the role in their corporations, in their corporate bodies, through the enactments and regulations. They're providing operations of law that says you as an inhabitant, where you live, you're going to be incorporated as a body corporate. You're going to be incorporated as or into the body corporate. Now, flowing into the criminal law, we find the same operations of law being used against an individual. Within the criminal code itself, keeping in mind that we have established that men and women are being incorporated into the body corporate without knowledge or consent. Now we look into the Criminal Code of Canada, we find the same definition of a municipality. It includes the corporation of a city, town, village, county, or township, parish, or other territorial or local division of a province. So you see, the city, town, village, county, whatever it may be, has been incorporated. It's considered a corporation. And the inhabitants of which, wherever you live, you are incorporated, or are entitled to hold property collectively for a public purpose. They do both. They incorporate you, and then they say you are indeed holding your property collectively for a public purpose. So we see the same operations of law in the statutory powers. Here, in municipal enactments, they're saying that we as inhabitants are being incorporated, and then we come into the Criminal Code of Canada and they stick with the same operation of law. They're saying you as an individual, wherever you live, you are incorporated into that corporate body, and we're going to treat you as an officer of that corporate body. So we are seeing in these statutory powers the operations of law that the government is using against us to try and gain jurisdiction over us. They are claiming that as inhabitants, we have been incorporated into the corporations. That's their standing. That's where they're coming at us. Now, Black Law's 5th edition says incorporate, to create a corporation, to confer a corporate franchise upon determinate persons. Incorporation, the act or process of forming or creating a corporation. We are seeing the same operation of law being brought forth in the Criminal Code as we saw in the foundational law, the ground law, the Constitution Act of 1867. We saw that Canada in the Constitution refers to a corporate body. And then we saw in the Criminal Code of Canada that again they're saying the villages, the municipalities that we live in, they are considered corporate bodies. And through the municipal acts, same thing. They are corporate bodies, and we are being placed into these corporate bodies. This operation of law goes much deeper than we are presently seeing. I have shown you how the statutory instruments place individuals into the body corporate, incorporate them, thereby rendering them officers of the corporation. We are not only being designated officers of the corporate body, but also considered to be operating out of offices, residences of the same body. So in truth, it is set up so that the law declares us, designates us, treats us as we were operating out of an office of a corporate body. And as an officer of the corporate body, subject to the statutory rules of these corporations. Looking back now into the Constitution Act of 1867, Article 91, it shall be lawful for the Queen, bind with the advice and consent of the Senate and House of Commons, to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Canada. Right away you understand that word Canada refers to a body corporate, a corporation in law. Now they have the right to make laws for 91.1, the public debt and property. 91.3, the raising of money by any mode or system of taxation. 91.6, the census and statistics. 91.15, banking, the incorporation of banks and the issue of paper money. So they have the right, according to the Constitution, to make laws concerning these subjects that I just brought forth, There's much more than that in the Constitution, but I'm only bringing forth 4 to show the operation of law. So they have the right to produce laws, to create laws, in order to govern in the body corporate, right? So the raising of money by any mode or system of taxation. So what are we seeing here? The Constitution Act 91 grants them the right, okay, to create laws concerning taxation or system of taxation to operate where? Everywhere? To operate where? Within the corporate body of Canada. That's what it's saying. That's what's being brought forth here. So only those who are within the corporate body of Canada are subjected to these laws that are being made by the Queen. And in 91.3, the raising of money in any mode or system of taxation. Again, great. So this is operating in the corporate body of Canada, in the corporation. What's that got to do with me? How does that affect me? Well, you just saw how they take you from being a man or a woman and they incorporate you into their body corporates. They incorporate you into the corporate body. And guess what? Guess what happens then? Now, because you've been incorporated, you become subjected to these laws, to these rules and regulations, because they operate within the corporate body, and now you've been brought into the corporate body, you've been given or conferred a franchise of the corporate body, you're an officer of the body, executing a residence of the corporation, and now you are subjected to their laws. If they didn't produce the operations of law that take you as an inhabitant and make you or incorporate you into their body corporates, then they could not use color of law to try and apply these laws against you. They'd have no ground or no standing. But they create this within the body corporate of Canada, bring forth these laws, and then use statutory powers to force you, to designate you, to play the role of a class of person who is an officer operating an office of these corporate bodies. And guess what? Now law has subjected you to its will, to its whims, to its desires. So in Canada, which we just read, which is a corporation, it is lawful for the Queen to create laws to raise money by any mode or system of taxation. Right? In Canada, in the corporate body, it's lawful to create laws for the raising of money. If we're not in Canada, their laws don't apply to us. So what do? They force us to come into the corporate body of Canada through the statutory powers, making us incorporated into their corporation. So now when we look into the income tax enactment, watch what it says. Tax payable by persons resident in Canada. Right? An income tax shall be paid as required by this act on the taxable income for each taxation year of every citizen of Canada. Is that what it says? No. Of every person in Canada. That's not what it says. Of every person resident in Canada at any time in the year. So what are they talking about here, Canada? What does that mean? Automatically we understand that that means the corporate body, the body corporate, right? Well, just walk up, we'll go backwards and walk it up slowly. She has the right in Article 91 to create laws for the good government of Canada, and that's the corporate body. Now, in subsection 3, she says that there's the right to create any mode or system of taxation, and that system of taxation will operate within Canada. And when we come to the Income Tax Act, who's the one who has to pay the tax? The Canadian citizen? No, it's very specific, right? It says that every person resident in Canada at any time in the year. Well, we know the word Canada here is the corporation, the body corporate. So what are they trying to say? Every person resident in Canada. How did they make you resident in Canada? You who are listening to my video. Remember, a resident is a person who has a residence in a particular place. Residence is a place where a corporation or other enterprise does business or is registered to do business. So here they're saying that every person who's been incorporated into Canada, who is operating as an officer in an office of Canada, is then required by this act to pay taxation on taxable income. Now notice that it says an income tax shall be paid as required by this act. So it's the act itself, the statutory power itself, that's going to define for us who shall be paying taxes, or what operation of law shall be applied for taxes. And we continue to read on then, and it says a taxable income for each taxation year of every person resident in Canada. So the enactment requires that every person resident in Canada, every person incorporated into Canada, every person doing business as an officer in an office of Canada is required to pay tax on taxable income. Great. You were born a human being. You were born a man or woman. You're free. You're not a resident of Canada. You're just simply a man or a woman. But now you see how they did it to you. They use their statutory powers. They incorporate you into the body corporate, thereby giving you a residency, making you a resident in the body corporate, and then they apply their laws to you. Thompson versus Minister of National Revenue, page 220. Residents are taxed. Oh, we understand that now. We know what that means. Not Canadians, not Canadian citizens, but residents within the meaning of the Act. So the designation, the class of person that is taxed, is not a Canadian citizen, but a resident. And a resident as defined by the Act. And we understand that every person resident in Canada means every person that has been incorporated into the corporate body of Canada. Because again, if they don't incorporate you into the body corporate, then their laws cannot apply against you. Because this system of taxation that they're raising money by, it only operates within the corporate body of Canada, according to the Constitution Act of 1867, Article 91. So they have to make you resident, they have to give you a residency within the corporate body of Canada in order then to apply their rules and regulations. And they do it through the statutory powers, where they incorporate you, they make you part of the body corporate, and now, since you're part of the body corporate, you are resident in Canada, and you owe the obligation, according to them. Good thing, though, that the Constitution Act of 1982 came out, because it trumps these operations of law. The Constitution Act 1982, Article 52 states that any law that limits or abridges my rights and freedoms as found in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is of no force or effect against me. And I never asked to be part of this club. I never asked to be part or be given membership to the body corporate called Canada, to the Corporation of Canada. You took me through your domestic laws, and you tried to incorporate me and force me to play from the designation, from the role of a class of person who owes duty and obligation to your corporate body and your corporate laws. But in 1982, Her Majesty signed on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and my fundamental rights and freedoms, my human rights and freedoms, they guarantee me freedom and liberty against this tyranny that is being brought forth. It guarantees me the right to my liberty, not to be part of this system that is taking from me.